and Nomiki, Democratic strategist. Hello to both of you. Nomi, I'll start with you. You heard Nancy. The FBI is telling Tesla owners to be extra vigilant because of the so-called global day of action. Shouldn't they be stepping in maybe to quell some of the violence or some of the fear that's around this country, especially when it comes to these Tesla showrooms?
Yeah, I think, there's no place for any sort of violence in any movement at this point. But I think the goal of this is obviously to shine a light on a brand and hit Elon Musk where he'll be heard. I mean, you can't go towards his satellite systems. You can't go to space to deal with that. So you go to Tesla and the dealerships. Again, these are dealerships. They're the business center. It's not individual owners of Teslas, and anybody who goes after those, should be investigated because it is violence and it's destruction of property. But with that being said, Elon Musk, again, at that cabinet meeting, not elected, wearing a MAGA campaign hat, something that used to be against the rules. He has no authority. He did not go before the Senate to be approved as a cabinet member. He has no authority. He's hired basically teenagers to go in and look at data with data that is confidential, and he's taken a hatchet to our government. So people are upset. They're losing their jobs. This is an administration that campaigned on protecting American jobs, and the first jobs that they're cutting are American workers.
Stephen, I do want to come to you. Representative Jasmine Crockett was on a call with activists. She's saying it was her birthday wish to see Elon taken down. She did later say, listen, my comments are not violent. They're not meant to be violent. Trump recently said that Tesla vandals could be sent to El Salvador. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, do you think Americans are ready to see fellow citizens being sent to El Salvador for something like this?
Well, look, they need to be treated as terrorists. I know that. Where they get sent exactly, I'll leave that up to law enforcement. But President Trump is exactly correct. When you use violence and intimidation to try to force somebody into your ideology, that's a pretty good working definition of terrorism. And unfortunately, the reality is this has been a consistent pattern of the left. This is not isolated. In other words, they tried to kill President Trump several times. If we go back to the summer of 2020, the BLM riots, mass violence across the country, burning of cities, attacking of cops, all motivated by leftist ideology. What we see consistently from the left in this country is that when they can't persuade people, and they're not very good at persuasion, the Democratic Party has never been less popular than it is now, but when they can't persuade people, all too often they turn to violence and intimidation and looting and burning, and that's what we're now seeing with Teslas. And there's an extra irony or paradox here because, of course, the left has tried to force people into electronic vehicles for many years. Now they attack those vehicles and those very people in those electronic vehicles that they compelled them into. So, look, I think regular Americans have had enough of this nonsense. Law and order must carry the day, and the punishments must be swift and severe for these anarchists and these violent terrorists.
Would you own a Tesla now, Steve?
Look, I'm not interested in an electric vehicle, okay, for a lot of reasons. However, would I be intimidated about owning one? No, I would not be intimidated. I'm not interested in an EV, though, personally, right? I love, and as most Americans do, having the autonomy and the flexibility of a gas-using, fossil fuel-powered car. I think that makes much more sense for most people, certainly for me.
Let me stick with you for a sec, Steve. I wanted to ask you about the huge crowds we've seen come out for Bernie and AOC as they're holding rallies in swing districts. It's called the Fighting Oligarchy Tour. 34,000 people showed up in Denver. Should this worry Republicans?
No, but I think what it does tell us, and by the way, this is important for the establishment of both parties, the old guard of the Republican Party, as well as the establishment of the Democratic Party, to realize is that populism reigns, and I think that is very evident. It's evident in the last election. Of course, Donald Trump won an absolute mandate, but it's also evident on the populist left with these Bernie rallies. There's clearly some animism and some energy there, and fighting against oligarchs, we in the America First movement are all for. Of course, we believe that most of the oligarchs in America were completely aligned with the Biden-Harris administration. It's one of the reasons that they lost. But I think clearly, if I try to put my partisanship aside, populism is absolutely ascendant. It is here to stay. I think the question for America is whether it will be populism of the right or the left, and clearly I'm advocating for populism of the right.
Nomi, AOC, Bernie Sanders, do you think they're the future of the Democratic Party? Do you think they'll be enough to pull in those moderate Democrats?
As somebody who was an OG Bernie person in 2016, I can tell you this is the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, the roots of the Democratic Party, the voters of the Democratic Party, the working people of this country, the union members that Donald Trump tried to steal away from the Democratic Party, really do care about Medicare for all. They do care about having an education department that's funded so that their kids are taken care of, the next generation can get jobs. They care about having public universities that are funded. They care about having your roads funded. They care about having subways. They care about reducing pollution and funding the EPA. I mean, our country is greater than many because we fund these programs. The oligarchs, you know, Donald Trump being an oligarch, so I'm not sure how the Republican Party didn't run on oligarchs when Elon Musk is an oligarch, Donald Trump's an oligarch, and some of the most egregious oligarchs in this country funded the MAGA right movement. You know, they're trying to hoard even more money. They already got the biggest tax breaks in history, and they want more right now, and they want to strip, you know, they want to lower, they don't want to increase the wages in this country. They don't want to protect our unions, and they want to offshore any jobs and create AI. Let's talk about all the different ways they're not protecting workers. So yes, there's a reason why Bernie Sanders had 35,000, 40,000 people in Arizona turn out, because those people are hurting, and they see that the administration 2 months in isn't doing anything to protect their wages, to protect their jobs, and to protect their ability to live a strong life in this country.
Yeah, most of these events have been at full capacity. I have about 15 seconds left. Steve, I want to give you the last word.
Nomiki, what President Trump is doing to protect working people, the most important aspect of his agenda is closing the border, is controlling the influx of cheap labor that was
Why
unfair,
did 30,000
unjust,
people show up in
illegal,
Arizona for Bernie Sanders on the border in
smash
Tucson?
wages for regular working Americans. He has that under control. Thank goodness now for our national security, for our street safety, and for our economic prosperity, particularly for working class people.
All right, we are going to end it there. Really great conversation. Steve Quartz has Nomiki. Thank you so much for coming in. Steve.